After putting your drawstring through the top, you should be able to pull on the 2 drawstrings on the side. So like right here on my left and my right, if I pull on those, it should close my bag, and then I can just open it like that. The last thing we need to do is sew these ends into the bottom corner. I've done that on one side just so you can kind of see what we're looking for in the end, but you haven't done that yet. So I'll show you one side, and then you'll go ahead and do the other side that I've already done. And when you're done, your corner should look something like this. So it's kind of a 3-dimensional corner. That way you can put things in it, and there's like a space on the bottom for if you put like some books in there or something, there's a little bit of space in there. So this is what it will look like when you're done, and then it'll be attached to the top. When you pull, then you'll have like a little bit of space for this backpack to go like around your shoulder or something like that. So that's what we're going for. And let's talk about how to do that. So the first thing we need to do is tie a knot, because this is what the inside of the corner looks like that I've sewn. Looks like this. So I need to tie this knot so that my drawstrings stay together, right? So I'm gonna look at my bag here, and if I zoom in just a teeny bit, you can see this drawstring is coming through the left side and this drawstring is coming through the right side. So I'm just going to go ahead and follow them down. So I'll put my finger here so I know which one's coming from the left and which one's coming from the right, and I'll just slide my hand all the way down, so that way I make sure they're not just twisted around each other until I have the 2 ends together, and then I will tie them in a knot. I'll do that by creating a loop. So I'm just taking a loop, and these 2 ends are coming off the back side, so they're coming off the back. So I'll pull them to the front and pull them back through the loop, and that's how I'll create my knot. And I want this knot to kind of mimic the one up here so that my drawstrings are the same length, because I cut them to be the same length. So now I want them still to be the same length with the knot and everything. So I'll go ahead and pull. I want my knot to be about the same area as this other one. So I'll pull them through right here like this. And the knots are pretty close to being the same. So I have that done. Next step is to pull them through the bottom corner, because my other bottom corner, if I can find it, still has this hole right here, right? And there's a little angle with the hole, and I need to pull them through that bottom corner. So to do that, I'm gonna again find my left piece, so this is my left drawstring and my right one, and pull them down so that they're even. I mean, they're still on their right side. So here's my left one, here's my right one, and I will put them through the hole that same way, so that the left drawstring and the right drawstring are on their respective sides, so left and right. And I'll need to turn the bag inside out for that. So I'm just gonna reach my hand in here and grab them. So my hand's just kind of poking through. You can kind of see my finger right here. Hello. And I'll just poke this through that tiny hole and grab it. So I have my left on my left side, my right on my right side, and then pinching everything with my hand. So I'm pinching right here. I'm gonna pull my bag to the wrong side. You can see my hand here, and I'll keep my left drawstring on the left side, my right drawstring on the right side, so that they're not twisted around. And you can see here that I also have 2, let me just zoom in a little bit. I have my seam allowances, right? I have 2 seams here, and I want those seams to be right on top of each other. So I'm going to pull my drawstrings over to the side for just a second so I can make sure that these 2 seams that should be pressed open, so I want to keep them open, are right on top of each other. See how they're kind of off right now? They're like off a 1/4 inch. I'm going to move them so that they're right on top of each other, okay? I want those to be right on top of each other. And once I have that, just take us a second. There we go. Now I have them right on top of each other. See how those are, like this seam is right on top of this seam down here. I can slide my drawstrings over. I'm just gonna straighten everything up. Oh, there's a bell. I'm gonna slide my drawstrings over. Sorry, we have the Halloween stuff going right now. And I wanna make sure that, so I'm gonna pull this out just a second. I wanna make sure that my other corner matches. So as much is sticking out of my drawstring on this side, I want it to be sticking out on this side, so my drawstrings are the same length. So I'll just kind of make sure they're the same. I might push this one down a little bit because the other one's a little bit taller. So once I have those evened out and my seams are lined up with each other and my drawstrings are kind of centered on those seams, I will go ahead and put a pin in through this So I'll just pin it right here so that I have my drawstrings kind of pinned in the middle and my seams pinned on top of each other. And I'll go ahead and sew this at 1/2 inch seam allowance. So if I look at my machine here, my 1/2 inch is going to be between the 3/8 and the 5/8, because that's 4/8, which would be simplified to 1/2. So I'll line up there and I'll start at the top here, back stitch, and sew down to the bottom and back stitch. So once I have that lined up at 1/2 inch, I can start sewing. Go forward 3, back stitch, and then I'll take my pin out as I approach. It'll get kind of thick, but your sewing machine should be able to go through the drawstrings just fine. And I'll sew down to the bottom and back stitch. And then I'm gonna cut my threads real quick. Sorry, I'm out of frame for that. Now I'm going to go over that one more time. So the same seam, one more time, back stitch, sew over it. And this time I'm even gonna back stitch over the drawstring. So when I'm kind of over the seam right here, I'll just back stitch a little bit over that, make sure it's really strong, and then sew to the end and back stitch again. So I just want to be really careful that my seam is nice and strong. I'm trimming my threads, sorry you can't see. And I'm going to sew over one more time, but this time I'm going to go over 1/4 inch into my seam allowance, 1/8 of an inch, sorry, into my seam allowance. So that means I will line up with this inside toe of my presser foot. So see how I'm lined up with the inside toe of my presser foot. And I'm going to slide this down so I'm on the fabric actually. And I will sew forward 3 stitches, back stitch, sew, and then when I'm over my seam line again where my drawstrings are, see my seam line right here, and my drawstrings are kind of lined up with that, I'm going to back stitch over my drawstrings again, and then sew to the end, and back stitch. I just want to make sure that this is really strong so that my bag doesn't fall apart and my drawstrings don't pull through. I'm going to trim my threads off to the side again, sorry. But you can see, so I've sewn over this seam twice and I back stitch over the drawstrings. I sewed over this seam once and back stitch. If you want to make it extra strong, you can go over this one more time. But that just makes sure that my drawstrings are very, very secure. And it also kind of spreads out the tension when things are pulling on, like when I have something heavy in my bag. It's not just pulling on this one point, it's also pulling, so it's not pulling on this one seam, there's a second seam it's also pulling on, so it kind of distributes that weight. So once you've done this to both sides, you are done with your drawstring backpack.